Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Bree Maces here with Joey Richards and Zach Seegers. Guys, how are you?
Doing really good. We are full in, it took no time. It feels like that last Broncos game was forever ago already. We are in the full swing of Broncos head coach conspiracies. We are in off season. We're in conspiracy season right now with the Broncos. Everything is a conspiracy. And so I don't know. It's fun. It's kind of fun to follow. Everyone has different opinions on these coaches. Yeah, I don't know. I'm right in the swing of things with the offseason. I thrive during the offseason, so I love this. Zach, how are you feeling, man?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. Ready to talk some Broncos. Let's do it. Got a ton of great questions from the people. Thank you, everyone who asked questions. We got some from the last batch from last week that didn't quite make the cut. Want to make sure we're getting to all your guys' questions. So all the more reason to ask them because 99% chance we'll get to them at one time or another.
Let's go.
Yeah, and if you didn't already know, this is a mailbag episode. So if you'd like to get your questions and comments highlighted, all you need to do is jump on over to the YouTube or the Facebook stream by searching Mile High Sports. We'll be at the top. We are live right now. So if you want to interact with the show, please come and do so. We're going to be here for a while answering lots of questions that came through because it's that favorite time of the week. It's mailbag time. We already have people jumping on. Oh, and Robert Armstrong's already on with a question. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to start with Robert just because he was right off the bat. He really wanted to get in here. I appreciate it. What do you all think about the coaching issue? I think we should go with Jim or someone else. I think the asking price is too much for Peyton.
So I understand this sentiment. I really do, Robert. I understand it. Because usually the coaches you hire, right, you don't have to trade a draft pick for. 99% of them, you can just go out and hire a guy. You know what I mean? They interview because they want to be part of your team. In this case, with Sean Payton, you have to trade draft capital for him. Now, why I would do it, because I would trade draft capital for Sean Payton, is because these other guys' resumes pale in comparison, if I'm being honest. I really, really think that. You're always going to have one negative or two on there, but Sean Payton's resume is really great. And it's hard to find, it's like a draft pick. Of course, I would trade my first round pick for an established player if, they were on a similar contract and all that type of stuff. There's no guessing with Sean Payton. I feel like I know what I'm getting there. So I would trade a draft pick for him. Now, as far as Jim Harbaugh goes, I love Jim Harbaugh as well. Those are my 1 and 2. I have Sean Payton 1, Jim Harbaugh 2. No real complaints there. But yeah, thanks for chiming in, Robert. Do you guys have anything else to add on there?
Yeah. I just looking at it, I don't know. It's Robert, we'll get into a lot of angles of the coaching issue with all the questions we have today. As regard to the asking price, I'm with you. Jim Harbaugh, I think, would be my number 1 pick. The asking price might be too much for Peyton, given what little I know about the situation. If I had to operate, if I was in the ownership's shoes, offering off or working off of the limited amount of information I have to work with, I don't know if I'd give up a first for Sean Payton. I'd worry about, his long-term commitment to the team and everything. Can he do it with Russell Wilson? Does he have a good plan for Russell Wilson? But that's the type of thing you figure out in the interview process. And I think ownership will get there with Payton. I think his track record speaks for itself. I think he's a borderline Hall of Fame coach. I think he's arguably the best coach out there, and the only reason it's arguable is because Jim Harbaugh's out there and he has an unreal resume in his own right. So yeah, I trade a first for Sean Payton. If you think he's the right coach, this true difference-making, game-changing head coach, which I think there's 16 coaches that matter in the NFL about. There's 7, 8 on the top end and 7, 8 on the bottom end. And the other 16 are just kind of in the middle and don't matter all that much week to week. If you think Peyton's in that top 8 where he's going to really change the culture of your franchise and give you a week to week schematic advantage and everything, he's more than worth the first round pick. Unless you're drafting a quarterback, you're not going to draft a more impactful player.
All right. Well, thanks for chiming in, Robert. Appreciate your questions. If you want to get your questions and comments answered, you just got to hop on over. We're live right now. I'm going to jump right into it. We got a lot over on Twitter. We're going to start with Broncos Insight asks, who do you expect to have final say in personnel if the Broncos land Harbaugh or Peyton? Zach.
Yeah, I think it'll be Harbaugh or Peyton or whoever the big coach is, whoever they hire. If it's one of these big name head coaches, I think that big name head coach is going to have a ton of power. And I think David Shaw falls in that bucket. Honestly, the NFL's been trying to get him for a long time, and he's been happy saying no to jobs for a long time. I think if you're even getting David Shaw, you're giving him that level of power. Dan Quinn might demand that level of power to make the Broncos job more appealing. Like, the two big things they can offer coming in head coach are money and potentially power. George Payton's in minimized role now. He's lost a bit of power. I think they're willing to kind of sacrifice him to get the head coach they want. And so, as long as they want the coach bad enough, and I think Harbaugh and Payton fall into that realm, I think they'd be happy to give them final say.
Yeah, for me, I totally agree there. Like, you saw it, right? So the GM or the head coach will be reporting directly to the owner. That has been announced, and that's what's happening. That's unorthodox. That's not something that regularly happens. And it does bring up questions like that. I think it sets it up for the Broncos to make a big swing like they have been attempting to do here, right? You don't have to worry about going through two other people. Your boss's boss is your owner. No, I just have to deal with the one guy that hires me. And if he gives me a ton of money, which is what's said to be happening here with Harbaugh and Payton, it would make sense for him to have more power than a George Payton would. I think there's a chance George Payton still has influence right now, I think, but if a Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh walked in there, they would definitely have more power than our current GM. I just think that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah. Speaking of ownership group, I think it's important to know everyone who's involved with the ownership group. And that leads me to the next question that came up. Denny asks, no matter how the coaching, possibly GM search shakes out, do you see any possibility of Peyton Manning joining the organization in any capacity, or am I feeding the fed horse? Denny likes that saying because he heard Zach say it one time. So I really like that it keeps coming back.
Shout out to Denny. No, I'm happy we're seeing, I've seen it a couple times on Twitter going through the mailbag and setting this up and everything. Now we've had a few listeners reference the show. And I don't know, that's just cool to me. It reminds me that people actually listen to us kind of pal around and talk Broncos together, and it makes me really happy. So shout out Denny, one of my favorite questions. Any possibility of Peyton Manning joining the organization? Certainly. He's been interested in, something in that realm, whether it be GMing or owning a team or whatever. Really, since he's been retired, he's been connected to that stuff. I don't think it's especially likely. I think if it really were to happen, the time you would have seen it happen would have been last offseason when they were constructing the group. Lewis Hamilton got in there. There would have been room for Peyton Manning, and it didn't happen then. Could it happen now? Totally. I don't think it's the most likely thing. My other thing would be, I wouldn't be clamoring for it, whether it be head coach or GM or any capacity. I'd be a little worried the one big front office-y decision that Peyton Manning has stood on the table for post-career, and he did it twice, was Adam Gase deserves a head coaching job. And then Adam Gase was wronged in his first head coaching job. He should get a second one. And he was really wrong both times. So a little concern to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a concern. I don't think former players automatically make them great personnel people. I don't think that's the case. We've seen that. In basketball, there was no better player than Michael Jordan. Go ask yourself how the Charlotte Hornets have done. That's kind of what has been happening. I don't think it automatically makes them fantastic. I would like to see, just as like the fan in me would love to see Peyton Manning part of the Broncos still. I mean, that would just be fun. That would be a really good time, and I would enjoy seeing if he could do it, and I'm sure he would enjoy seeing if he could do it. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Peyton Manning wants to take a role anywhere. Like, this is a super powerful guy in his own right. I don't think he needs to take a job like this. This isn't what he needs to do. He can go off doing more important things for him, I think, which is why the rumors that we did see with him being involved with the Broncos was being somewhat of an owner of the team. Like, I think that's kind of the seat that he would have to fill with his current life setup, I would assume. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to see it in some capacity. The way Peyton Manning has accepted the Broncos into his life as his priority team, suck it, Colts, is just how it's going to be. And I really enjoy seeing it happen. Peyton Manning considers Denver his home. He's at basically every home game. And the way he supports the team is a matter of fact. But Joey, I do agree, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to have the chops to necessarily make certain differences. Although if he wants to give it a try, I say let him do it. I think it would be something that would create a different kind of energy moving into just everything else that's going on. Frankie has a comment here. Second best quarterback to ever play the position. I mean, I say it here first. I don't know what to tell you. I don't make the rules. Okay, Frankie, I don't love the question. Team calls offering a second round pick this year and a 2024 first for Justin Simmons. Who says no? This man is unhinged, and I don't know if I appreciate it.
This is the line of questioning that he was taking me down yesterday. And I mean, it was kind of eye-opening, but I want to know Zach's opinion here. Would you take that?
Oh, man. It totally depends on what else is going on with the team. He's 29. He's 29. Going to be 30 about halfway through next season for safety. He's got a good bit left in the tank. It'd be really tough. I think you look at I'm really not sure. It'd be really tough.
For me, it's Justin Simmons is absolutely amazing. I don't want to trade him. I even hope a team doesn't come offering this. I really do. Just so I don't have to see this happening. But I kind of am. If a team did offer a first and a second, like, that's a really hard offer to refuse there, guys. Like, it's really crazy. And we're talking about the safety position. And we're talking about where you can allocate those first and seconds afterwards, or what Bradley Chubb was just got for a first.
You're willing to give up the best safety in the league.
Yeah, and look at what losing Bradley Chubb did to this team. Like, now edge is a huge need. They could spend that first round pick on an edge rusher, and there's a good chance they don't fully replace what Bradley Chubb brought to the pass rush. Like, and to the locker room.
Disrupted the locker room.
There's totally a locker room issue. There's 100% after the Bradley Chubb thing. Trading Bradley Chubb might have cost you Draymond Jones. You might have given up both those players. There's absolutely a locker room problem. And then you look at Justin Simmons, who is even more so than Bradley Chubb, the lifeblood of this team. I understand the positional value and everything. But if you are trying to win games right now, it does not make sense to trade Justin Simmons in my mind. I think this. Well,
that's where I'm kind of leading the conversation.
If you get rid of Russ, and you're blowing up the team and really committing to a hard rebuild, then it makes sense. But I think only in that world. And then if you're in that world, I don't know. I wouldn't be on record saying that I would trade Justin Simmons, but I would say that exchange would make a lot of sense.
I'm going to go on the record right now and say that you're both absolutely bonkers, and that you're not trading Justin Simmons.
So what's the price? What do you have to trade for a safety? Jamal Adams was looked at the best safety in the time. That was two firsts, and everyone says that was ludicrous. So what's the price? If it's not a first and a second, what is? Like
yeah,
I
It's
just,
not a
no, if
price.
you're
You're
trying
not
to
gonna get one
lose,
out.
that's a good price. Like
like I don't like that's the, and then I'm also talking to two people that have been on the record. Zach wants to cut Russell Wilson this offseason, and Bree hasn't liked Russell Wilson since we got him. Now, if
and
we
to-
are
Listen, I'm
rebuilding
gonna
here,
lose.
there's no better way but to then trade players. That's what you have to do for picks.
and to Frankie's point, there's a decent chance Justin Simmons walks in 2024. He is an amazing player. Everything Bree would say to defend Justin Simmons is true. He's an amazing player, very valuable to a locker room, and he's going to be coveted at the end of 2024 by teams that are in a position to win games. If the Broncos don't go to the playoffs over these next 2 years, I think there's a very good chance Justin Simmons leaves as a guy who's never gotten to experience the playoffs before in his career and understands he's nearing the end of the road.
And I would love to
When
see
you
that.
when you put it like that, he deserves a one season with a winning record at least. And if you can get him in that, as long as he would be happy, it would honestly pain the hell out of me to see
He's an
Justin
amazing
Simmons
player.
not be a Denver
All of us.
Bronco.
All of us, yes.
It only happens if you're blowing it up with Rod. Like that's the only way it even kind of makes sense. Let me pull up the contract specifics too, because I'm not clear on that.
My thing is like, I'm with my thing with the Broncos is I'm not advocating for a trade for Justin Simmons whatsoever, because I love Justin Simmons and it would kill us to see him walk and go somewhere else and be successful somewhere else. I hated it with Von Miller. I hated it with all the Broncos. Really great players we've had. The thing is, the Broncos keep playing in this realm where they're not actually rebuilding, but they're never good enough to make the playoffs or some situation like that. Now, we can talk about the locker room culture all we want, but what does it take? Like, I'm sure that it would hurt immediately, but that's what a rebuild is, guys. It hurts immediately, and you're then rebuilding. That's like the whole idea. So while I do agree with all the points that were made from everybody, I mean, it's hard for me to advocate for a rebuild and then turn down an offer like this at the same time.
The Broncos are like the apartment complex that was built in like 1820 or something, is like an early high rise. And it used to be like a warehouse, and then it was a hotel, and it's like kind of gotten remodeled 4 or 5 times in past hands and ownership, and every time they've just kind of like built on the skeleton of what it was. And now it's a defunct building. There's health hazards all over the place. It's not up to code. It's a safety violation. And, it's time to maybe it's time to just blow it up and rebuild a new building in its place.
Let me go through these comments real quick while I try to get my head
have
straight
been
and
so
make an appropriate response. Frankie says, follow up. Do you think Justin Simmons is likely to stick around? That's what we're talking about right now. And then he gives his answer. I hope if Denver still hasn't made the playoffs by then, he walks. Justin Simmons deserves to be in the playoffs. Frankie, I agree with you, and it's going to take me a little bit to own up to that. And the compensation is going to have to be there. And Justin wanting to step away is going to have to be there. And I'm not going to take it in stride. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be an emotional wreck. Robert Armstrong chimes in. Frankie, watch your mouth. We love Simmons. He's the heart of the defense. I agree there. And then Frankie says, oh my God, a Zach analogy, my favorite. So we're all on the same team.
Football robot. But I do want to say one thing that we forgot to mention earlier. We do have an alarm set. After 45 minutes of answering questions, it'll go off. And then the ones we don't get to will be saved for next week. But yeah, just to try and keep us on schedule a little bit. And yeah, so if that alarm goes off, that is what that is. Just didn't want the listeners to be surprised.
I didn't know you actually set an alarm. I do love that. Let's hop on over to the next question. Oh, look, it's from Zach. You're put in charge of the Broncos head coaching search and are forced to hire a first-time head coach. Who are you hiring and why? Joey.
1 second. Let me reread this real quick. Zach, go ahead.
I'm going Shane Steichen or Steichen. I keep hearing it pronounced both ways, and so I'm not sure which one is right. I've talked about him a good bit on the show. I'm a big fan of him. His approach to solving problems. And I was reading a really interesting piece, where he talking about him and Phillip Rivers and their relationship and how they still talk about the game. And he just seems like, or how when he came in to Los Angeles, before they even had practice or anything, he had like gone through his playbook and removed certain plays that would have been uncomfortable for Rivers given his sidearm delivery. Just certain plays that are like, this won't work with the sidearm, cut that out. Like he is a true quarterback whisperer. I think that's what they need to solve Russell Wilson. And I think he'd also be a great quarterback developer. He was the offensive coordinator who saw Justin Herbert having the best rookie season by a quarterback in NFL history, or the most productive at least. I think that was the best version of Justin Herbert we've seen to date, to be frank. I think Lombardi's misutilized him. And then you see him go to work with Jalen Hurts, like polar opposite of Justin Herbert, and have tremendous success. I love his approach to solving problems. I love how creative he is. I love how adaptable he is. And I think wherever he ends up, it's going to be like the Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel effect. I think that's how we're going to be talking about him next year.
I'm not mad at that one, Zach. That's a good one. I'm going to keep pounding the drum with what I've been saying about D'Amico Ryans for me. He's like, and a lot of this is just like me. I've fallen in love with the person that I think could be a football coach so much. Like I've watched so many of the pressers, so many of him just getting jacked up on the sideline. I tweeted this morning something about players, coaches, and how I view players, coaches to be. And D'Amico Ryans fits it exactly. He's a guy that is going to step in the locker room. He's going to have a ton of respect immediately, being a former player. He's also a really great motivator. I saw something that said Daniel Jeremiah, when he was writing his report on D'Amico Ryans, he's one of only 2 ever players he wrote former coach on the report with, which is insane. And that's exactly what's come to fruition here. I just think he's a phenomenal person to lead a locker room and build a winning culture eventually. And that's not even mentioning what he's done with that 49ers defense and coming under Robert Saleh, who's done his thing with the Jets, obviously, right? So I really, really like D'Amico Ryans, and I think he could build the culture and be that guy here for a really long time. So that's my guy.
Sorry, Joe. Taking what Robert Saleh did, and I think he improved upon it. Another interesting thing I was hearing about this coaching search, and just to support Joey's point, like Kyle Shanahan is not Mr. Players Coach, is not Mr. Affable. He's not the most lovely, effervescent personality. And that's why he's employed Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. He understands what those figures bring to a locker room, and he has them kind of be the character instillers, the locker room managers. D'Amico Ryans is a defensive coordinator, but he has really good relationships with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and Jimmy Garoppolo and everyone else, because that's the type of guy he is. He was tabbed by Kyle Shanahan and has seen this rapid ascension, not only because he's an incredibly smart defensive mind, but because he's a great coach and a great leader of men. It's made it very easy for him to go from quality control coach to position coach the next season, to a couple seasons of that to DC. First choice up after Robert Saleh left. And it's not like there weren't great options on the staff. Chris Kacerix is the Mike Munchak of defensive line coaching. So well respected, so well thought of. Did the 49ers go there? No. They went with D'Amico Ryans. When D'Amico Ryans was a rookie linebacker in Houston, Kyle Shanahan said his nickname on the team was Mufasa because everyone viewed him as the wise old lion. As a rookie, I've never seen something like that. I haven't covered the NFL in a locker room setting for years and years and years, but in the years I've done it, I've never seen a rookie treated like that. Maybe the closest would be like Patrick Surtain, but not even as like a locker room leader, just as like this dude's a fucking pro and knows what he's doing. But I don't know. I'm huge on D'Amico Ryans. He'd be my number 2 pick.
You guys went with D'Amico Ryan, so I'm going to go in the other direction with first-time head coach, and that would be Coach Evero, just because I think he is so well-liked by the players that are already on this team. You're not going to see a whole lot of variability thrown around from year to year, although, first-time coaches, maybe the Broncos shy away from that. This is the one opportunity they'd have to go in-house, someone who connects with these players. The defense was top 10 in the NFL, although it did slow down a little bit after the Bradley Chubb trade. The defense kept playing extremely well given all of the injuries and the loss of Chubb. And I think that he has the ability to take the players and put them in positions to succeed, whether it's where they fit in his scheme. So I think honestly it would be it would be negligible to leave him off of this list just because maybe he's not the most high up there for everyone else. I think what he's done here for the Denver Broncos in one of the worst years on record, and he has an inexperience to build a staff. So I think that obviously we're going to be having question marks about what if his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator looks like. But I don't think that I would have any concerns about Evero being able to do this job and do a good job at it. I just think maybe he needs another season under his belt here in Denver, and then it would be a consideration. It's unfortunate that it worked out the way that it did here with Hackett's departure.
I love the pick, Bree. I think Evero will be a great head coach whenever that opportunity comes along for him. And I would have said that it just wasn't going to happen this offseason. But looking at how coveted he's been, getting tons of interviews all over the place, I think one of the most interviewed candidates, or one of the most scheduled to interview candidates. Some of that's the Broncos being eliminated, not going to lie. But I think there's a really good chance he gets a head coaching gig. I think he is the type of guy where, like, Sean McVay, for example, was not super highly thought of when he took that Rams interview, and he wowed them in the room and ended up getting that job. And people were like, this Sean McVay guy is going to fix Jared Goff? Okay. And now we're here. Again, that's a very lofty comparison, but I could see Evero being that guy who is kind of a relative. If you have from a national perspective, if you are a Carolina Panthers fan living in Charlotte, you don't really know who Ejiro Evero is. And you see, okay, we're interviewing Ejiro Evero, or you're a Houston Texans fan and you see that. You might not be wowed by it, but I would not be surprised in the least if he ends up getting one of these jobs. Yeah, really likable personality, true leader of men, and then a really smart guy too. The one thing I'll say is I think the job he'd probably be most likely to get is the Houston job. And danger, Will Robinson. Like, do not go there, Ejiro Evero. That is a trap. I would take the Falcons defensive coordinator job 5 times before I take the Texans head coaching job. Evero's on the track where he should get a head coaching opportunity very soon. Don't waste that potentially once in a lifetime shot on the Houston Texans.
Is there not potential that he could take a lateral move somewhere else? And that would be the major concern.
Totally. That's what I was referencing with the Falcons there. They just requested to interview him. And the Broncos, it hasn't been reported that the Broncos are blocking it yet. They very well might let Evero go take that Falcons DC job.
I won't say. Okay, continue.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question.
Joe Fired, Joey, unlike some people. Sorry, Brie.
Oh, wow. No, you should be sorry. Joe Rouse over on Twitter asks, out of the interviewing candidates, who do you want the least and why?
Who do I want the least? Okay. It's like a 3-way tie for least for me. And it's not like that I hate any of these people. I think they deserve an interview, but I just like these other guys' resumes more. Of course, like, I'm not in there in the interview room being able to talk to these people, and I don't know. But my 3 would be Raheem Morris, Dan Quinn, and Evero would all be at my bottom 3, all for different reasons. I think the Dan Quinn move, one, I don't like that it feels like he's getting all these opportunities because he's buddies with George Payton, honestly. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. But I'm not mad at the interview itself. I'm upset with that it's talked about and I believe him in a lot of sense, that he is their third guy after a Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh, when it should probably just be open competition, because I don't think his resume is above anybody else there. Evero is just the lack of experience for me. First-time defensive coordinator, I'm hesitant to move him up. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Those are my three: Raheem Morris, Evero, Dan Quinn, three-way tie. I'm kind of tiering them. I don't really have a huge rankings there.
Yeah, I'll go with one. I'd say Dan Quinn. It's between Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris to me. The fact that Raheem Morris was on Dan Quinn's staff, took the defensive coordinator reins and the head coaching reins from him, and the team improved under Raheem Morris's watch, is a pretty big critique of Dan Quinn. You might say, well, Dan Quinn has improved. He is a new man. He learned from his first time head coaching, and he's got lessons he's going to apply. Raheem Morris was a head coach too, and he was really young when he got hired. It was like a decade ago. He's learned and grown and had learned a lot of lessons, probably more than Dan Quinn has learned in 2 years. Well, look at what he's done in Dallas, changing his defense and how creative it is and all the unique pass rush stuff it does. You know what? Having the most unique pass rusher we've seen maybe ever is going to allow you to do some more unique pass rushing stuff. Like meanwhile, you have Raheem Morris going to LA, and it's like, oh my God, how do I build on what Brandon Staley has already done here? I'm going to do it with a bunch of penny stuff. Like I like it a little bit. And then I also like the fact that he's coming from the McVay tree, if I'm being honest with you. He learned his lessons seeing Dan Quinn's mistakes firsthand. He's learned from Dan Quinn's mistakes too. He's learned from Sean McVay, which I think is really appealing, versus having 2 years to learn from Mike McCarthy, fixing all your lessons. They are in a very similar tier to me, but that's what distinguishes those two. Evero's a hair above those two for me. I think just because of his experience with the defense. I know how much the defense, and frankly, the offensive players too, I know how much they all love him. And then on top of that, like, that's not what's the most important thing. We learned that with Hackett. I think he's a defensive genius. And although he's not been a head coach before, I haven't seen him fall into the mistakes that I've seen Dan Quinn fall into. And maybe that's problematic bias on my part that favors first-time head coaches. But with the first-time head coach, there's a chance they are just a really good coach. Dan Quinn does have the ink blots on his resume that don't look so appealing.
So the reason Raheem doesn't beat out Dan Quinn for me is because, like Dan Quinn, do I see them having a career after Russell Wilson? No. And the Broncos, I just don't. I think that they're in that same similar thing. The only difference there to me is that Dan Quinn has familiarity with Russell Wilson, and he was going to bring Seattle guys, and that's his plan to come and fix Russell Wilson. I have no idea what Raheem Morris can do to fix Russell Wilson, or why. Like, I have literally no idea. And like I said, I don't think that he can go and live past that either as a Broncos head coach. I don't think he's going to demand the amount of power needed where it's like a Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton. It's not the investment where after this, you're not going to be looking for a different guy. So that's why I'm not, he's kind of in that same tier for me, at least.
I think that's really fair.
I'm pleading the fifth. I don't have anything to add. I'll be interested to see how it all shakes out. But I don't know what the ownership plans on this. Joey, that terrifies
Jim Caldwell. Just been talking mad shit. She goes, Jim ain't him.
I don't think I've had strong opinions either way. I'd rather focus on what makes me excited about all candidates. And I would say that I don't have, last cycle, I felt like Dan Quinn should have been the front runner to begin with. And then we went with Hackett, which now it seems like you have to completely change your game plan. So I think that has to be logically why he tumbles down the list this time. And not conspiracies aside, I'm just going to go ahead and slowly back away from the screen and go on to the next question, because Paul has a question.
Something you'd only do if you felt there was a conspiracy to avoid.
No, we're doing the conspiracy. We're doing the Conspiracies podcast next episode.
Yeah, the next episode we'll talk about all the deep dark secrets of Denver media.
Can we put tinfoil hats on?
But I think that's the way to do it. I
That'd
think
be
that's the
amazing.
way to do it.
I'm going to go make them tonight, and I will get them over to you guys this weekend. Paul has a bunch of questions. Paul, I appreciate you.
Rapid fire.
Rapid firing these questions. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly if I can read them. My eyes are pretty old. Of the head coaching possibilities so far, which one will make the fewest roster changes? Joey.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn's a solid answer because he's tied in with George Payton. I'll go with Giro Evero. No need to change the schematics on defense at all. The defense would stay entirely intact, and I imagine the offense would bring back a lot of pieces too.
Awesome. Number 2, which one will make the most changes?
Harbaugh.
I'm going Sean Payton.
I think those are the top 2 answers. They're the ones that'll be the most empowered and have the ability to make the most dramatic changes. I went Harbaugh because I think we've seen Harbaugh go into a program several times now and just churn it and be like, this is the way we're doing things now. It is my way or the highway is kind of Jim Harbaugh's whole mentality. And that's kind of the knocks we've heard come up against him. But you know what? I kind of think the Broncos need a my way or the highway guy right now, which is why I'm a Harbaugh guy. I think he would make the most changes.
Really, that honestly makes me hesitate a little bit, because I don't think you need to go ahead and change everything over again. There was a lot of change last season, and it put the team in complete disarray. We need a little bit of continuity.
Who was overlooking the change last time versus who would be overlooking it now? I trust Jim Harbaugh to instill his vision.
I don't know. I think it's a little too much me. I'm going to do whatever I want. I control everything. And I don't know if I want a coach to have all that power. 3, which one will move on from Russ the fastest? Not named me or Zach.
It has to be Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh again. I will go with Sean Payton.
I'll go with Jim Harbaugh because we've heard the leaks that Sean Payton, those are probably coming out from Sean Payton's camp, and maybe it's posturing and leveraging and whatever, but we've heard the leaks that he's really interested in the Broncos job and that he's not scared off by Russell Wilson. Maybe he's hoping it heats up the Chargers' desire to fire Brandon Staley.
Conspiracies episode next
Conspiracies
podcast.
Episode, it's eating up. But I do
Stop.
The fact that he said something and Jim Harbaugh hasn't leaked that out, I'll go Payton.
Okay, number 4, which one would
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh. Which one would keep Russ long term?
Dan Quinn. Obvious. Bang that question home. That's the obvious answer there. I'll give the reasoning why on this one. Guys, it's pretty simple. He has ties to both George Payton, who made the Russ move, and then Russell Wilson himself. And like it makes perfect sense why. He's going to be brought in as the guy. Like, you already have heard it. Brian Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer is an OC, right? Also Russell Wilson ties. His job is going to be to come in here and fix Russell Wilson and nothing else. So yeah, Dan Quinn, easy.
Dan Quinn, 100%.
I feel
Conspiracies.
like
Like 3 months ago.
I'm okay. The NFL is going to swoop in, and if you don't see Let's Talk Broncos on your screen next week, someone has to come look for us. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to put out there, and we're going to head on over to the next question. Paul, thanks for all of those questions. This one comes from Jolene over on Twitter. Who's your dark horse candidate for the head coaching job, and how much money would you put on him for getting the job done?
Ooh, getting the job done. Like doing it.
Well,
getting the job. Okay. My dark horse is probably Jim Caldwell. I would say that because in a lot of the ways the Broncos are looking for experience, Jim Caldwell brings that. I thought, like, if he was – the fact that he hasn't had another opportunity is pretty absurd to me, honestly. Like, looking at his prior resume, he's he's the first head coach to leave Detroit with a winning record through the 1970s. You had to take it all the way back to then. Like, he's done well in Indianapolis. I think that if you're looking for a guy that can relate to the players, everything you hear from players is Jim Caldwell's a great person. I've heard that so many times. And brings that experience much like a Dan Quinn, just more of an offensive focus and, adult in the room type guy. So I'm going with Jim Caldwell just because of everything I've heard the Broncos are looking for.
Yeah, I like it. It's not the dark horse route I would go. There's a couple. I would say watch D'Amico Ryans. I do think he is a good shot. I think people will write him off because he's a first-time head coach. But these people are not leaking. The Walton Penner group really are not leaking much. And they are not tied to the first-time head coach thing in the same way. Most of their interviewing candidates are experienced guys, but I don't think it is going to remove Ryans from consideration. The dark horse I'll go with, though, and that I'd lay money on is David Shaw. I think the Stanford connections for this ownership group do carry weight. I think they are meaningful. I think he would be a big fish. And the fact that we're seeing him reported, I think it was Tom Pelissero with the leak, lumped him in with the rest of the Broncos' big fish, tells me a little something about how maybe the Broncos want to start framing a hiring of David Shaw to get a little conspiratorial. Yeah, David Shaw, I think, would be a really good head coaching candidate that makes sense. Another guy who's a program builder, maybe won't wear on you quite as much as Jim Harbaugh, has a little more of the X's and O's schematic stuff that maybe Jim Harbaugh doesn't. And again, I think the Stanford thing really is huge here in the Broncos decision.
But is he an adult in the room? Can somebody tell me exactly what that means? Because I need like a more definition because the buzzwordiness is kicking me.
Okay.
It's kicking me.
I hate
you
it.
were buzzwording. It's nonsense. It's that and player coach. Joey kind of hit the nail on the head earlier with his tweet. It's too nebulous. It's a little nonsensical. Someone who can just he's been a head coach at a high level, and we've seen him oversee a bunch of young adults, do it at a high level, do it with a lot more stringent stipulations and like rules and restrictions because it's Stanford. Yeah, I like it.
Oh, well, I don't. So
I hate the
that's
term
all right.
out in the room, and I kind of mad at myself.
I'm not saying I like the term. I like Shaw. I like David
Oh,
Shaw.
we were talking about adult in the room.
I am scattered.
Joe.
Adult in the room. Zach pretty much hit it on the head. I think it just means like having a guy that'll keep people in line. That's the way I think of adult in the room. Having a guy in the room that won't let people just do whatever they want. It's like that's what that term means.
And since I'm the adult in this room right now, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. I just had to get it out there. Jay Weaver asks, do you believe that George Paton is going to be retained this time next year, or will the Penner and head coaching team pick their own guy?
I think they're going to pick their own guy. That's my take. I think that the move can come sooner with a Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton move, but ultimately, I think within the next couple of years, unless Russell Wilson turns it around and the Broncos start winning immediately, whoever is in place, whether it be the head coach that they hired, who's a big name in the building and the owners trust him, or whether it's the owner looking for a pairing of head coach and GM, I suspect that happens in the near future.
Yeah. It depends who it is, but yeah, if it's Peyton Harbaugh, I do not see George Paton sticking around. If it's like a Dan Quinn, a Giro Evero, then I think the odds of Peyton sticking around are really good.
Interesting. I don't. I don't. I think that I really don't. I really don't.
I think alignment matters. I think alignment matters to this crew, or you wouldn't have heard the little Hackett smoke at the end of the season before they ended up firing him. I think they value alignment, and I don't think they want to necessarily fire George Paton. And I think that's honestly part of the reason they would like to hire one of these big fish head coach that they feel can oversee things and kind of minimize Payton's role.
So you don't think that these big fish coaches would come in and want their own guy at GM?
No, I think they would. I'm saying I think it's dependent on the hiring. If it's Peyton Harbaugh, then Peyton is out. If it's an Evero or a Dan Quinn, then I think Peyton stays, because even if you're empowering Dan Quinn or a Giro Evero, I don't know if they'd have this way to be like, well, look, I don't think Evero has the GMing connections to be like, this is who I'd bring in instead. And Dan Quinn wouldn't do that because there's the pals.
Yes, my take is that after this next year, if it doesn't look good enough where they want to keep the whole group together, they're going to get rid of everybody all at once.
I don't think they'd go one and done back to back like that.
I think they would. Hot take. Money talks.
I
I really, 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 really. That is what I think. Like, what do we have to say they won't? Like that's what I just keep going to. There's so much more indicating that George Payton has lost and is going down. Like, his trajectory is like this. What makes it think it's stopping? Like, I just don't see. There's been nothing that has shown me that they do.
The hiring of a Giro Evero or Dan Quinn would be sign of it stopping some, because both of those limit how much power you're stealing from the GM.
I think it just makes it easier to get rid of all of them next year. That's what I think.
All right. I like it.
All right. We'll hop on over to the next question here. La Chapiza asks, outside of the head coach, what would you say is the biggest issue Denver has to address this offseason?
The biggest need they need to address is the offensive line. That's what they need to address. They need to make this offensive line better, thoroughly, like throughout. I think that if you were to do it, I would if you could do 4, I would do 4. Like, it really needs a rehaul, just front to back, this offensive line. Everything about it, they need to address it in some way, because there's 5 of them up there. If you're not addressing it at all, it's really, really going to be rough. Well, what do you guys say?
Yeah, I'll go offensive line coach. If there's one big issue to address, I think that would be if and I'm just really agreeing with Joey's point. It's the offensive line, but the Broncos' problems on the offensive line are so deep. I don't think there's one single issue on it. You have to improve the whole. You have to improve the whole line and the depth of the line and just everything top to bottom. So offensive line coach, getting that in the building, I think is going to be the biggest outside of head coach.
There you go.
And then the alarm went off. So we are out of time for questions. I stopped it. I thought everyone could hear it, but yeah, alarm went off. We did 45 minutes of questions.
Cool.
He's hard stopping all of
you. You won't get a second more. You greedy.
you know what you have to do? You know what you have to get to get more questions? Not only do you have to subscribe to the Let's Talk Broncos YouTube. No, I'm kidding. You just have to come back the next episode and we'll do another mailbag episode and we'll answer more of your questions and we'll do all of that. But, since we're done answering questions for the time being, it's time for everyone's favorite time of the night. And that's Joey's question of the day.
Oh,
it is. It is ready for we're ready. Okay, guys. These just keep getting worse and worse. The first one is where we need to stay at. That one got me pumped up. I don't know what we're doing with these other ones.
The middle evil one's regal, Joey. It's when you're in a royal.
All of them are absurd.
It's like you're at the Renaissance Festival.
I think I actually have a good question today, I think. Maybe.
That's why we played the regal drop.
These 3 players all wore the same number. Tell me what number it is. Did you guys understand that? You guys are looking at me like really confused.
Yeah, but you didn't say a player. That's why I was looking at you like that.
No, you're saying, dude, I was in the middle of talking and you're like, you're not getting what I'm saying right now? It's like, okay, the 3 players are Brendan Langley, Will Parks, Devontae Harrison. If you guys can't get it,
21.
We'll add another player.
Ooh, not 21.
Oh no, I made a mistake. 11.
Bree, go.
I don't know now. I thought I had it.
27. Which looks like 21.
27 is correct. Who told you in the chat? Let me go over to that.
Well, I knew with Langley it was either 27 or 12. And then the moment I heard the second one, I had it.
Well,
Okay.
I'm happy for
27
you.
is correct. I thought that was a good one. If you guys like those questions, let me know.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm trying to get better with them. I'm running out of trivia questions, guys. I have no more. If you guys have good trivia questions for me, message me at JR Drafts. Message me at JR Drafts. Or if you're in our Discord, message me privately in there. Just reach out to me with your questions. I'll give you credit afterwards. I'm running out. Like, I have no more. Like, I'm literally asking them, like, how their day was on here now after the podcast.
He'll give you extra credit.
I think that's part of the beauty of Joey's question of the day is we don't know what we're going to get.
Joey, don't give me that power. Cal, message me.
Yeah, Cal, give us some questions. We can pin it on you. We can have a really fun time, and then we can go, Cal, I can't believe Cal would do such a thing and say such a thing. Yeah. How dare you?
Where can everybody find your stuff?
Everyone, follow me at JR Giraffes on Twitter.
Now we're getting threats.
If you're giving threats, you can follow Zach at Zach Seegers. All hate will go right to Zach Seegers. You can follow me for football content at JR Giraffes. Bree, follow her at Bree Maestas 303. I love my two co-hosts. Make sure to both follow them. They're both doing amazing work. And also, a lot of new cool stuff coming in the podcast. So everybody be on the lookout. Do we have a schedule in place, by the way, yet? Or are we still working with that?
We don't. We got to talk about that. I think Monday.
Would you like to live stream our business movie? Or
yeah,
our business meeting?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure out dates.
Right now.
Sorry, everybody. We got to get that to the listeners. We'll get that sorted. Yeah, everyone, please check me out at Zach_Seegers. Little announcement, won't be affecting LTB. LTB is here to stay in the way you guys know it. Of course, as we've said, we'll be doing less episodes during the off season, but LTB is going strong. That's going nowhere. But other things in my career are going to be changing big ways. Some new big opportunities have come up that I'm excited to pursue that I don't think I can fully talk about yet, but stay tuned for that. So for now, please check me out over at Zach_Seegers, and yeah, get ready for what's coming next because it's going to be big.
Yes.
Can't wait. I cannot wait. Robert says no more Zach. We've moved on from Zach. I don't know who ZACK is, but yeah, there's no more Zach.
That's going to be the version of me that replaces me. The shadow.
It's just a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, the government, the Broncos Gestapo shadow puppet who comes in and is just like, hey guys, I'm Zach. Same old LTB crew, but it's Zach with the K. And that's how you
I want a cardboard cutout with a soundboard that I've manipulated to make you say stuff like I miss Melvin Gordon and extend Russ again. And Drew Lock was our savior. And then I'll just go ahead and keep hitting the buttons. We won't have to worry about any of it. It'll seem exactly oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I was just kind of making fun.
Yeah, we're just joking, Robert. You're fine.
With you. I thought we were close like that. You can follow me over on Twitter, Bree Maestas 303. You can catch me on Mondays on the Fan Cave Mile High Sports Radio with the Zach Seegers. And we'll talk about everything Broncos related and more. We're going to be covering a lot more of Mile High Sports in general. So you'll get to catch us and our takes over there. Joey, maybe if you want to join us, you can hop on over there. You can catch us basically every single day still here for Mile High Sports, the Let's Talk Broncos crew. We'll be bringing you even more coverage, even more shows, and even more fun because it's off season and that's what we get to do. So we'll talk to you soon and we'll see you Monday. Bye, guys.